So the talk before the start of this NFL season was that the Chicago Bears would have one of the best situations for a rookie quarterback to enter into. In 2 weeks into this NFL season, that could not be further from the truth. We have witnessed two Bears games that surprisingly came down to the wire despite atrocious offensive play, largely due to the Bears defense pretty much carrying them overall in both these games. But so far, I think the expectations that people had for the Bears offense and Caleb Williams have not, we have not seen those expectations come anywhere close to fruition. The Bears have been one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And I think the biggest problem here is their offensive line that through 2 weeks in this NFL season have allowed a 53.4% pressure percentage, which is the third highest pressure percentage allowed through in the NFL in the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. And so it's awesome when you get high quality, top tier receivers, when you draft a receiver in the top 10, when you sign a guy like Keenan Allen, who did miss the past game with injury. But when you cannot protect your quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback who doesn't have a ton of experience in the NFL, it's hard for anything to go right with your offense. And the atrocious play of this offensive line has led to the Bears being 31st in yards per game at 176.5, 32nd in yards per play at 3. And because the pressure gets to Caleb Williams so quickly, they're not really able to get much going down the field. And you can sort of see that because of, their league worst yards per play. They're throwing a ton of screens, a ton of short passes, trying to get the ball out quickly to sort of ensure that Caleb Williams isn't getting absolutely clobbered every single play, which has been happening consistently in these first 2 weeks of this NFL season. And when you look at a quarterback like Jordan Love last year coming in his first year starting with the Packers did a very good job of supporting him with a very strong offensive line. You look at the Packers last year, they had the third lowest pressure percentage allowed in the NFL last season. And so when you can support your rookie quarterback with a offensive line that gives him time to, process what's going on and, have time to make his reads and be comfortable in the pocket, that goes a long way in building that quarterback's confidence. But when you have Caleb Williams out here having to get the ball out quickly, having to make even quicker decisions because, the offensive line is doing nothing to help him, it's just made it that much harder for him in his first 2 weeks in this NFL season. And it looked like the Bears had a really good situation because of the receivers that were brought in here. The Bears offensive line was honestly a lot better last year when you look at these first 2 weeks of this NFL season. But if they cannot get this offensive line cleaned up, then it is going to be a very, very long season. And I think it's going to be very hard for Caleb Williams to find any kind of success. And I was curious to see, how Caleb had been playing when the offensive line kept him clean in the pocket. And the numbers aren't very good. 26th in passer rating, 20th in completion percentage, 33rd in yards per attempt, and 28th in PFF passing grade. And that's when he's been kept clean in the pocket, which I'll give you has not been very often. So you'd assume, too, when a quarterback is standing back there in the pocket and they're getting clobbered every play, even when, he's getting a little bit of time back there, he's probably pretty nervous in his head, thinking he's going to get smacked, thinking he's not going to have any time. And so I think that would also affect him even when the offensive line is keeping him clean. And then I think the other big problem here is I really haven't loved Shane Waldron's offensive play calling. And I think nowadays in the NFL, when you look at some of the best teams and what they do, most of them have a pretty high motion rate. And I found this chart from Rich Rebar, and he showed here motion percentage in the NFL. And so far, some of the teams with the highest motion percentage are the Saints, the Rams, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Vikings. All offenses that I think are some of the best so far this season, some of the best play callers. You look at the Bears, they have one of the lower motion rates in the league, closer to the Titans, the Browns, the Panthers, the Broncos. And so I think that the Bears need to adapt and get some more motion going. They definitely do it, but not at a high rate. It's somewhere around mid-30s%, so maybe a third of the time, where a team like the Packers is at maybe 75%. The Chiefs are around 73-ish%. The Saints are closest to like 80 to 90%. And so I haven't loved what Shane Waldron has done here. Another thing the Bears have struggled with is when you look at the blitz. Here's a stat from NBC Sports Chicago. The Texans blitzed Williams on 41.7% of his dropbacks Sunday per Next Gen Stats. He went 3 for 12 for 15 yards and an interception against the blitz. He was 20 for 25 for 159 and a pick when not blitzed. And so the Bears need to figure out a solution to protect Caleb Williams back in the pocket. These blitzes aren't helping either. And even when he tries to escape and run around, he's not finding the same success he found in college. And I think that's just because these defensive players are much faster and much more athletic than your typical college defender that Caleb Williams is playing against during his time at USC. So the offensive struggles have been really bad, and it's a really bad sign for Chicago. If they don't get this cleaned up on offense, it's going to be a long season for Caleb Williams. And the one thing that could save the Bears this season is their defensive play. And it's pretty shocking. I already read you the stats of how bad this Bears offense has been. And despite that, they still beat the Titans by 7, and they lost to the Texans only by 6. And so this Bears defense has been one of the best in the NFL. They're 4th in EPA per play allowed, the 6th best scoring defense. They've allowed the 8th fewest yards, the 4th fewest pass yards per play allowed, and they have the 5th best pressure rate in the NFL at 39%. And so the only reason that these games are even somewhat close is because of how dominant this Bears defense has been. And so the bright side, I guess you could say, for Chicago is that if they can get this offense figured out to even make it an average offense, which I'm not very confident in right now, because if this offensive line keeps playing like this, it's never going to be even average. It's going to be closer to the bottom of the NFL. But if they can find a way to become, the 15th best offense in the NFL, which I think is asking a lot based on what we've seen so far, this is still going to be a very competitive team just because of how good this Bears defense is, their corners, their secondary play. That's really the reason that they've been able to stay in these games, even though the offense has looked completely atrocious. So I'm curious to see, what we'll see the changes made from this offense going forward, because what has been shown so far out there is, not going to cut it. There's no doubt about that. But if you guys want more NFL content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.